Hey everybody, it's Jesse, and it looks like it's time for another installment of Social School. And so here I am saying hi to everybody. Hope you had a great week and things are going well for you. Um, if you have seen these videos, you know that we just wrapped up the social skills section. We talked about asking for help, following directions, being assertive, standing up for yourself and doing it the right way. Some pretty heavy hitting, difficult social skills stuff. We're going to switch gears now. And for the last couple sessions, we're going to talk about decision making and how we kind of put all the information together that we've gotten so far into making better choices. Your life will be determined by the choices that you make, whether you make good choices or bad choices. Every choice that you make affects how things go for you. And so we want to spend some time just kind of thinking about our choices and how we make them, whether it's a snap decision or something that you have to kind of really think about and take seriously. Um, your decisions, again, will determine your success in life. And you make decisions every day, right? What to eat for breakfast, when to go to bed, whether or not to acknowledge social distancing, or are you going out, are you working, what are you doing with your day, right? What are the choices that you make on a daily basis? And from day to day, your choices affect your life for better or for worse. And so when we think about making decisions, one of the first things that we want to kind of keep in mind is what are the consequences of our decisions, right? So if I decide in the short term that I just can't stand it in the house anymore and I decide to go out, um, what are the short-term consequences? And so we talk about the difference between short-term and long-term consequences, right? And so short-term can mean anything between, the next few minutes, the next few weeks, the next few days. And then long-term consequences are things that will impact us down the line, right? So how is this going to affect me 3 months from now? Um, 3 years from now, into the future, 10 years from now. And again, all the choices that you're making right now are affecting your life for the rest of it. And so as you look at the choices that are put in front of you, you have to think about, are the short-term gains worth the long-term consequences? And so as we go through this, and you start thinking about those consequences, again, you will be tempted in the short term, right? Do I want to eat a whole pizza? Do I want to, you know, get some exercise? Do I want to, do my homework? Am I trying to graduate? What is it that you want out of life? And you have to kind of recognize how your choices are going to affect you. And so as we get into this, I want you to think about a couple things. Um, the first one that I wanted to talk about is I want you to think for a minute about what would you say is the hardest decision that you ever had to make, right? Was it whether or not to break up with a boyfriend or girlfriend? Was it, maybe where you wanted to go to school or where you wanted to go to college? What was the hardest decision that you ever made? And then the second question that I want to ask everybody is what do you think was the best decision that you ever made, right? So, the choice that gave you the very best rewards, not only in the short term, but in the long term, right? What choices have you made that have led to good things? We make good decisions all the time, right? So when school was in session, you made the choice to get up and go to school. Right now, you may be deciding to do your homework instead of binge watching Ozark or whatever else you have on your Netflix. And so, again, there are tough choices that are ahead of all of us, and hopefully we can take that information and turn it into some of the best choices that we make, right? So sometimes the hardest choices are the ones that have the best rewards. Um, and I'll just say again, when you make these choices, you need to think about your consequences, right? Short term versus long term gains. Maybe in the short term, I want to go out and go to Walmart. But if I decide not to wear a mask then, and I end up sick, then the long-term consequences of that can be very, very serious. And so to help you with this assignment, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell you a story from my life. It's about one of the hardest decisions that I made and probably one of the best decisions that I have ever made. Um, and I don't know what you guys know about me personally, but I'm going to share a little bit. Um, I will tell you that I was one of those people in my life, especially when I was in my younger life, like from middle school on. Um, I was very interested in girls, right? So from middle school on, dating was a big deal to me. And my approach to dating was that I would basically ask out any girl that I could see, and whether they said yes or whether they said no, I just kept asking and kept asking. And so as a result of that, and not, having my feelings hurt, I got a lot of dates, right? And I'm not the best looking guy, and I definitely wasn't like the other rich kids from Edwardsville. So, I got turned down a lot, but I was stubborn and I just kept asking and kept asking. And so, like I said, I'm not trying to say I was a player or anything, but I got plenty of dates, right? So, taking girls to the movies or going to a carnival or whatever it is, I was never at any loss for that. And I dated on and off from probably about seventh grade through all of my sophomore year. And after doing that for a long time, things kind of got old. You know what I mean? I was tired of just, going out with random people, never really had a girlfriend or anything like that. And so I decided at the end of my sophomore year, I was about to turn 16. I decided at the end of my sophomore year that I was going to have a girlfriend. And there were a couple of girls who were on my short list. Um, One of them, her name was Christina, and Christina was probably one of the most attractive girls in our high school, as far as in my circle of friends. And what made Christina so attractive to me is that she was a preacher's daughter, and she was trouble. So not only pretty, but a lot of fun. We did all kinds of wild and crazy stuff, and I had dated her before, but it was nothing serious. And Christina was definitely on my short list, right? Um, she was somebody I was very, very interested in. And then there was this other girl, and her name was Lisa. And Lisa was this little cute church mouse of a girl I had met in band. She was a year younger than me. Um, but she was kind of nerdy and kind of shy. And she had dated some of my friends before, and so I knew that, she might be looking for a boyfriend. But I just could not decide between which one I wanted, right? Should I go out with Christina, um, who was definitely the most attractive, but probably some trouble in the long run? Or should I go out with Lisa, who might be maybe a little bit more boring, but might keep me safe? And so for some context, you need to remember that by the time I was a sophomore in high school, I had been arrested 3 times, right? So my probation officer told me that if I got arrested again, I was definitely going to detention. And so I had this choice to make, right? So do I go with trouble or do I go with what's safe? And it all came to a head right after my sophomore year of high school. So I had decided that I wanted to go to the movies, and I was going to invite Christina, or Lisa, I was going to invite one of these girls to the movies. And the movie, I remember, it was Terminator 2. And I was really excited about this movie because the first one was just awesome. And I was going to invite these girls. And so the first phone call I made was to Christina. And Christina, um, I called her phone and I got an answering machine. No one was home. And so I left a message. I said, hey, was just thinking maybe this Saturday night we could go out to the movies, check out Terminator 2, and left a message. And so, like, hour and a half later, I still hadn't heard anything, but I wanted a date for Saturday night. And so I decided she probably wasn't going to call me back and I should call Lisa. And so I call Lisa, and she agrees. She says, "Yeah, sure, I'll go to the movies with you. That sounds like a good time." And I thought that was really, really cool. And I was looking forward to my date. But then about half an hour later, right, Christina calls me back and she says, "Oh yeah, I'd love to go to the movies. That looks like a good one." And so I was stuck, right? I had two different girls who both had said yes to the same date, and I had no idea what to do, right? So this was kind of that deciding moment where I had to make this decision. And it was one of the hardest, at that time, it was probably one of the hardest decisions that I'd ever had to make. And I thought about it and I thought about it and I just still couldn't decide, right? So it's Friday night, I have to decide what I'm going to do. And so I just decided to wait, right? I was just going to think about it and sleep on it and see what would happen. And then that night, one of the strangest things happened. I had this dream. And in my dream, I was in church, which is weird because when I was that age, I definitely was not going to church. And I was in church and I was sitting next to Christina, and she was, all dressed up in her goth black dress and black nails and, looking real pretty and whatever. And we were talking, and I'm like, "Oh, what are you doing in this church? I had no idea." And so, as we're talking back and forth, the preacher comes up to me and he says, "Jesse, you know you're not supposed to talk in church. You got to get out of here right now. The both of you leave right now." And as I get up to go and I'm walking out of the church, there are police standing right outside the door of the church. And I got arrested in my dream. I got arrested for talking in church. And it was just the strangest thing. It's like I'd never had a dream like that before. And when I woke up, I realized that it was my dream that was trying to tell me something. And so my decision was made. I could not go with Christina. There was no way that I could go on that date, because if I ended up with her, I was definitely going to end up in more trouble, right? One of the times that I had been arrested before, I was with her. And so I just knew that I could not get in any more trouble. It was time for that to be over. And so I made up my mind. I was going to go on the date with Lisa. I called Christina and I told her that I apologized. I left you a message and didn't get back to me. And so I made another phone call and I got another date. And I ended up going on that date with Lisa. And it was actually the first date that we ever had. It was absolutely awesome. I loved it. She was smart and funny and definitely made a good choice. And I know today that that was one of the best choices that I ever made, because that girl, Lisa, now is my wife. And we have been together for something like 32 years, right? And we've been married, in this summer, we'll have been married for 25 years. And so that choice that I made when I was 16, all the way back then, still is paying dividends to this day. I love my wife. She's fantastic, one of the best moms you can imagine. She's a great teacher, just a fantastic human being. And so definitely that was one of the hardest and one of the best choices that I ever made. And so probably for you, your choices, the things you think about, the things that come up aren't necessarily going to be as big a deal as that. But again, your assignment for the next week is I want you to think about, what was the hardest decision that you ever made? And what was the best decision that you ever made? And how did you go about thinking about it, right? How did you go about making that choice? Was it something that, you had to think about or write it down, right? And so in the next video, we're going to talk a little bit about strategies for making good choices, and think about, how do we go about making the best choices that not only have short-term benefits, but long-term benefits. And so hopefully everybody has a good week. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.